You for what? Welcome everyone to today's webinar. They asked you for what? Helping your patrons outsmart scammers and avoid fraud. This webinar is brought to you by the American Library Association and the FINRA Investor Education Foundation. During today's webinar, we ask that you use the Q&A feature to ask questions of the presenters. You're welcome to use the chat feature to talk to your peers. My name is Renee Blank, and I'm an adult librarian at the New York Public Library. I am also the co-chair of the ALA's Financial Literacy Interest Group. In addition to these webinars, we host bi-monthly conversations for librarians interested in learning more about financial programming for patrons of all ages. If you'd like to join us, you can connect with us at the link in the chat. So what brings us here today? Each year, Americans lose billions of dollars to investment-related scams. Chances are that the people in your community are being affected. As librarians, we are in a unique position to help. We can alert to warning signs and help connect our patrons to trustworthy financial professionals. Today's panel is composed of 3 professionals who all work in fraud education and financial literacy. All of the resources you will hear about today are free to your library and to your patrons. Our first speaker today will be Christine Kiefer. Christine is the Senior Director of the FINRA Investor Education Foundation and has more than 25 years of experience in investor education. She develops programs for law enforcement, victim advocates, and consumers to advance fraud prevention initiatives. She is also the Director of Research of the intersection of aging and financial decision-making and oversees the FINRA Foundation's military financial readiness initiatives. Welcome, Christine.
Thank you. I am delighted to be here to represent the FINRA Foundation today. Next slide, please. We are so excited to see such a great interest from all of the libraries around the country, because the issue, as Renee mentioned, of fraud and scams is becoming more and more prevalent, and we know that it's affecting your community. And so we hope that as a team, all of us together today can bring resources to you that you can immediately put to action in your community. Next slide, please. Just briefly to introduce my organization, you may be familiar with the FINRA Foundation. We've had a 20-year partnership with the American Library Association, specifically the Public Programs Office, and also the Financial Literacy Interest Group. So you may already be familiar with the FINRA Foundation, but you may not know FINRA itself. FINRA is our parent organization, and FINRA is a financial regulator, and it's our job to oversee brokers and broker-dealers that sell securities products in the United States to the retail public. And we have a dual mission of investor protection and market integrity. And through the FINRA Foundation, we engage in a lot of research as well as programmatic work, including our work with ALA, to help individual investors and consumers learn how to build wealth and also learn how to protect that wealth. And that's why we're here today. Next slide, please. Just to level set a little bit, I want to provide a couple of statistics. This leads to all of the work that my co-panelists are working on. The Federal Trade Commission is one place that collects data on fraud prevalence in the United States. And the latest FTC report from 2024, their data book, reported that $12.5 billion was lost to scams and fraud in 2024. And over 5 of that, so $5.7 billion, was specifically lost to investment and cryptocurrency related scams. And you can see in the graphic on the right, the breakdown of the types of scams that we're talking about. And while imposters is the primary category, we can pretty much say that impostoring happens across every channel of fraud. And we'll be talking about that more today. Hit the advance, please. Globally, scams are a problem, not just in the United States. And the Global Anti-Scam Alliance, which is a relatively new organization with chapters in various countries, including the Americas, estimates that over $1 trillion was lost to scams in 2024. And almost half the world is targeted per week for scams. And the reason I bring this up is to set the stage and help you understand that what you're seeing in your community is being replicated across communities across the country. And that's why it's even more important that we are joining together in this fight. Next slide, please. And a little bit more data. When we think about fraud and scams, a lot of people stereotypically think about age, specifically older individuals, as more vulnerable to financial scams. And that does not appear to be the case, broadly speaking. Now, there are certain populations that are targeted for certain types of scams, more specifically. So tech support scams, grandparent scams more typically target older populations. But we're seeing huge rises in employment scams targeting all employment age eligible categories, including younger populations. And in fact, younger people report losing money to fraud more frequently than older populations. But the amount of money lost is greater as we age. Now, these statistics really don't speak to the whole picture. Amy, Tracy on this call would certainly recognize that the money lost by individuals can be far greater than that $1,000 or that $1,400 that you see on the screen. In fact, the FINRA Foundation works with a romance scam recovery group, and the median loss in our romance scam recovery group is $150,000 per individual, with one case exceeding $10 million for a single individual. So the amount lost is much greater when you really look at the individual cases. Next slide, please. Now, what can you be doing in your community, and how can you take advantage of the FINRA Foundation's resources? I put together a couple of ideas here for ways that you can engage in scam prevention in your communities. Certainly, you're here today because you're looking at staff training. And helping your staff more broadly recognize how to assist a patron is one way that you can fight fraud. Resource development, so specifically flyers and pamphlets and books and videos and programming that promotes red flag identification. And sharing those resources broadly, making them widely available in very obvious locations in the library can be beneficial. Educational programming, Tracy's going to talk about opportunities with her organization, and there are others. So for instance, the FINRA Foundation works with Better Business Bureaus around the country, and I know that they engage in free community outreach. So they could be a partner for you in educational programming within the library. You may have an opportunity for direct patron support. That's probably what drove you here today. And while we know that you cover so many topics and have so much expertise, your goal is to guide your patrons to the resource that can be of assistance to them. And having resources on red flag identification, but even getting to know some of the scams yourself so that you can help them recognize flags if that is a situation, an opportunity that you have. And to assist with reporting. I know in preparation for this webinar, we talked about how common it is for individuals to come and ask a question about a financial situation, but they don't necessarily let on that they've been a victim. And you may, through the conversation, come to realize that they've been victimized in a scam, or maybe they say they're checking something out, but you can tell that there probably is more to that story. Helping them recognize how to get assistance. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. And then developing community partnerships with law enforcement and others that can again then provide that safety net inside your community for referrals. Next slide. And the reason the resource development and the publications that you put out in the library are so important is that we do see in research the power of knowledge. And while prevention and education of consumers is only one piece of the puzzle in the fight against fraud, it's an important piece and one that you have a great opportunity to contribute to. So in research with the FINRA Foundation, with the Better Business Bureau some years ago, we identified that knowing about a specific scam is perhaps the most helpful to individuals when they're confronted with that specific scam. So if they knew about it in advance, they can help avoid it and recognize the flags. But even just knowing generally about the tactics of scammers, the persuasion and influence that's used can be beneficial. And experience with scams, so individuals who have been victimized before may have some ability to recognize red flags. Thank you. Next slide, please. And it's more than money loss. And I bring this to you in part to help level set how that individual may be approaching you, the embarrassment or shame that they may feel if they have been victimized, and in part why they probably aren't sharing with you the whole story. But in our research, this is particularly research with a group called Give an Hour, which is a mental health counseling association. We wanted to see how individuals expressed their emotions in a period of time following the victimization. And at the very beginning, there tends to be a feeling of isolation and loneliness and embarrassment. But as time progresses, and this is particularly the case when a fraud has a great financial impact on someone. And by great financial impact, it's not always the amount lost, but maybe the amount lost for that person is very significant. And as time goes on, we see very significant effects like lack of trust, terror, rage, exhaustion, desperation. And so these are very serious emotional and mental health effects that can be displayed by fraud victims. Next slide, please. And I'll wrap up here in just a minute. So some of the things that you may notice in your patrons that they may be asking around or asking for, or that you might want to consider resource development and support of. Help with reporting, where to report a scam. There's sort of no perfect place, but we recommend the Internet Crime Complaint Center or the Federal Trade Commission or both. Amy is going to provide great resources with the AARP Fraud Watch Network. They can also be a place that can help you help a patron report. We also find that victims need financial assistance and counseling. Again, that impact of their financial loss could be great for that individual, even if it feels like a small dollar to you. We see a lot of tax and legal consequences to fraud victimization. So for instance, if someone has liquidated their 401k prior to retirement age, there can be tax penalties and early withdrawal penalties that they were not anticipating. And now not only have they lost those funds to a scammer, but now they owe the federal government for those withdrawals. And so there's a lot of need for financial counseling and assistance and tax assistance in particular. And lastly, mental health support. Please don't overlook the importance of trauma-informed care, empathy. This is something that you're probably well trained in the library, maybe not the trauma-informed care, but empathy and support. And you provide a warm, welcome door for individuals to come forward, and whether it's as a prevention place or as a victim assistance way. And so keep top of mind that what might be happening for that individual could have a lot of emotional impact. Next slide, please. The FINRA Foundation does provide access to support groups for victims. So we've been starting victim support groups with two different nonprofits. One is Fight Cybercrime, also known as the Cybercrime Support Network, and another is Give an Hour, which is a mental health counseling association. Both of those organizations provide free cohort-based peer support programs. And again, Amy will talk about AARP's Fraud Watch Network opportunities as well. And on the next slide, I'll tell you how you can get access to that. Actually, BBBs in your community. I mentioned already that you could maybe reach out to the Better Business Bureau in your community if you're looking for some educational programming, and they provide those supports. And the FINRA Foundation works with Better Business Bureaus around the country to train them on fraud and victimization. Next slide. And then I'll wrap it up. Here is access to the FINRA Foundation's resources. We have free publications that you can order to put out in your libraries, as well as access to the support groups that I mentioned. So I encourage you to go to this URL, finrafoundation.org/fraudfighter, for a variety of free resources and publications that you can order in hard copy, as well as access online. Next slide. And with that, I turn it over to Amy. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Christine. So we'll now turn to Amy. Amy Nossinger is the Director of Fraud Victim Support for the AARP Fraud Watch Network. Amy has over 2 decades of experience in fraud prevention and victim support. Amy oversees the AARP Fraud Watch Network Helpline, a toll-free helpline where anyone can report concerns related to fraud. Welcome, Amy.
Hi, thank you so much for having me today. And it's so exciting to see all the libraries pop up in the comments. I was going through and looking at them, and I see a strong contingency from Ohio, my birthplace. So go Ohio. Thank you for having me today. You can go next slide. Next slide. I don't know why that one is in there. So here we go. So I want to just quickly talk about the ARP Fraud Watch Network and how you can use this with your patrons at your libraries to help people. And I'm going to echo a lot of what Christine said, is when I talk today, it's not so important that you all become trained on spotting every single scam or financial crime that's out there, is really just to listen to your gut. And if someone is telling you something and you think that doesn't feel right, just know that there's resources out there like us to support you in this. So let me give those to you. So most of you are probably familiar with AARP, and first off, most people think it's for everyone 50 plus. That is true. But with our fraud work, we want to make that accessible to everyone. So it's everyone of any age, and you do not have to be an AARP member. So if you're speaking with someone and you say something about the helpline and they say, oh, I'm not a member, it doesn't matter. We serve every age. With the Fraud Watch Network, we really focus on three buckets of work. One, certainly staying informed. Like Christine said, prevention is key when it comes to this. But we also know that we're not going to educate our way out of this problem. Just like every other social ill or crime out there, we need to kind of look at it as a journey. So certainly we're going to try to pull people out as quickly as possible of their fraud journey with the education, with the fraud tips, with the prevention. So the Fraud Watch Network has a fantastic, website of information. We have our Fraud Resource Center that has printable tip sheets that you can print off for your library or share with someone about each one of the scams. We also have a award-winning podcast, and it actually just won 2 Signal Awards, which is pretty big in the industry. We get about 1 million downloads on this. It's called The Perfect Scam, and they really dissect a scam from start to finish in kind of an edutainment, is that what we call it, way, where you're educated but also entertained. So you can certainly go to your podcast, where you download podcasts, and look for The Perfect Scam. And this is something that you can also share with your patrons, because we know a lot of people are coming to the libraries kind of looking for that new way to educate and entertain themselves through podcasts. Support. So this is where I really fall into a lot of my work with the Fraud Watch Network helpline, and I'll go deeper on that. But we also have a fraud victim support group. We know that once we get off the phone with people who have been victims of this crime, oftentimes we know that the emotional effects often go farther than the financial losses either. So we do have a peer victim support group in addition to the helpline, because we know that these victims are often treated differently than other victims of crime. And so they're going to need that support. And then have a voice. This is certainly something that ARP does in every local, state, and federal House of Representatives, Congress, at legislatures, at capitals across the country. We're really proud of the work that we're doing in the fraud space when it comes to having a voice for people. Last year, we really looked at crypto ATMs in our communities and in our states, and how crypto ATM machines were really being used by the criminals to steal victims' money. So if you're not familiar with a crypto ATM, it looks exactly like a regular regular ATM. They're housed usually at gas stations, convenience stores, liquor stores, and they just basically sit there and wait. But that is where the scammers direct people to send them the money. Often they'll send gift cards, right? Or they'll have a wire transfer, but now it's these crypto ATM machines. So AARP saw the significant harm that these machines were doing to consumers in their states. And so we worked bipartisanly in 17 states and got new consumer regulations passed to put stronger protections on these machines. I am based in Colorado, and we had one passed in Colorado that makes it so new customers can only deposit $2,000 at one time, right? Because with these machines in many states currently, you can put in $80,000 at one time into a criminal's crypto wallet, and the money is gone instantly. We also advocated for, fee refunds. And so we're really proud of us having a voice in the fraud space for people in the community. Next slide. So a little bit more of a deeper dive on the helpline. So as I said, it's a free resource for anyone of any age. So anyone that comes up to you with a question about fraud or says, hey, I just got this text message. I know it's a scam, but I feel like I should let someone know about it. Certainly have them report it to the helpline. We really look at kind of three audiences for the helpline, three buckets of people. The reporters, right? The people who are out there posting on Nextdoor, about all the things that are happening in the neighborhood. We want them to call us and tell us the new scams that are happening, or even the scams that they are maybe old to us, but new to them. We want them to report it to us. If people have questions about something like, hey, I think this is a scam, but I'm not sure, what should I do? Have them call us, because that is a pivotal moment in that journey that I was speaking about, is pulling someone out of that moment. And then certainly if someone has been a victim of a scam, please have them call us. A lot of times people say, well, why would I call AARP if I could call, local law enforcement? Call local law enforcement. If they're comfortable calling local law enforcement, have them do that. But oftentimes people aren't comfortable. I've heard in my 23 years of doing this, I don't want to call law enforcement. They have bigger problems. Well, actually, no, that is their job to take care of this, but call us, and then we can talk to them one-on-one and encourage people to report it to law enforcement. Our helpline is staffed by 100. We have a triage team, and I'll go into that in a second, but then it's staffed by 150 trained fraud specialists across the country. These fraud specialists are volunteers, and so we don't have KPIs on how long people can spend on the phone with people. Our average time right now that we have spent on the phone with a victim, it says 22 minutes, but I guarantee people aren't putting the full amount in there, because just last week when I had to jump on the helpline because we were busy, I was on the phone for 45 minutes with people. And at this point, we're receiving 400 calls a day. So we have a significant amount of people who are calling us, and we need more people to call and report these scams. Next slide. So because we all want to be informed about places that we're referring our constituents to, I just want to give you a little flow chart of the helpline. Because if you're telling someone, hey, I just heard this speaker from AARP, they have this helpline, it's a fantastic resource for people, let me tell you a little bit about what's going to happen to set those expectations. So when you call our 877 number, and that's certainly at the last slide, the person will be meted with first like a disclaimer, right? Like with everything, we have to have a disclaimer, but then they're going to be greeted by one of our intake agents. Our intake agents will ask them a few questions about why they're calling. If they're calling just to report a scam, they can take care of them right then and there. If it does become apparent that this person was a victim, then the agent will get as much information as possible and put them in our escalated queue that comes to us, my team, and then we will pass it to one of our trained volunteers. And that person will then get a call back in about an hour. Now, the reason we do that is, one, so the volunteer can be prepared to kind of get the resources ready for this caller. But also we find that time by they report it and then wait for the call, they've almost set it a little bit down, because it can be intimidating to make that first call. And so they're ready to kind of move along in their journey and their next steps. The volunteer will take all of the information, give them the resources, that emotional support. And then just for knowledge, every single one of our calls that comes into the intake does go to the Federal Trade Commission's Consumer Sentinel data book that is used by a lot of law enforcement professionals across the country. Next slide. So this is the helpline's top 10 for last year. I'm not going to go into all of these, obviously, because one, time, but two, we don't need you guys to be experts in, spotting these frauds and scams. But I want to highlight two that I do imagine are going to come across your desk more frequently than not at the libraries. One is a business imposter. This is where you'll get a text message or an email from someone claiming to be from Amazon, Microsoft, your bank, whomever, saying that there's a problem with their account. So things to listen to. If someone says, I got an email about an overcharge, or I got an email about someone's charging my Amazon account. If you ever kind of hear those buzzwords, they're probably in the midst of a business imposter scam. And then sweepstakes and prize and lottery scams. This one is always in our top 10, if not top 5. And my staff and I kind of laugh sometimes because everyone's talking about AI, AI, AI. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we're still dealing with the Publishers Clearinghouse imposter scam, which was my first phone call 23 years ago, right? So the criminals are still doing the tried and true scams. So if anyone comes to you and says that they want a lottery, but they just need to get gift cards, how do I get gift cards? Again, they're probably in the midst of the sweepstakes scam. Next slide. So all of that being said, here are the 5 things I really want you to think about and maybe jot down when you are kind of thinking about everything you've learned today. Again, every single scam that is out there, and there's probably 200 that are classified, have the same scam DNA, is what I like to call it. They all have the same traits. Did the contact come out of blue with urgency, right? All of a sudden, are you sitting there and you get a pop-up text message or a pop-up on your screen? It came out of the blue and with urgency. Huge red flag. Is the person trying to get you emotional with either fear of you're going to jail or you have to pay a fine, or with excitement like, I love you, you're my love of my life, or you won the lottery? Scam. Are they asking you for money? Right? How much more clear can we be? If someone is asking your patron for money, it is 99.9% a scam. Now, I like to say that 99.9 because the lawyers make me say that. I would say it's probably 100%, or it's 100% a scam if someone is asking you for money out of the blue with urgency. And are they asking for that money in a non-traditional form of payment? So do you hear the word prepaid gift card, crypto ATM machine, Bitcoin, Venmo, Cash App, Zelle, gold? Gold is huge right now for the criminals. They love gold. If you hear any of one of those things, it's a scam, and have them stop. And finally, is this person that your patron is talking to, are they asking them to lie? Are they saying, if you go to the bank and they ask you what this money's for, just say you need cash to pay medical bills? That's a lie. If they're saying, why do you need all these gift cards? Oh, it's for my daughter's wedding. That's a lie. If they're asking you to lie, it's 100% a scam. So just remember these 5 things, and we can eliminate a lot of the scams that are out there. Next slide. So there is the most important phone number that you're going to get all day, is the helpline. I actually recommend people to put it in their contacts. We actually have a contact card, but go ahead and just put it in your contacts under ARP Fraud Watch Network helpline. Write it down. It's funny, when AWS went offline on Monday, it affected our helpline, and I have the helpline number in my phone, and I kept hitting my contact on there just to see if the phone line was back up. So go ahead and add that number today so you have it for your patrons. Listed at every computer. However you want to do it, just know we're there, and then certainly all the resources we have available are at that website. So thank you for having me today.
Thank you. So we will now turn to Tracy, but before I do, I'd like to invite you to put any questions you have for the panelists in the Q&A box, and we will have time at the end of the presentations to address them. So Tracy Wheeler is the Director of Technology Operations and Client Experiences for Savvy Ladies. Savvy Ladies is a nonprofit organization providing free financial education to all women. By providing a free financial helpline and financial education courses, Savvy Ladies helps to reduce economic and racial disparities in financial education. Welcome, Tracy.
Thank you so much, Renee. The next slide, please. Thank you for that introduction. Thank you for allowing us to be here to present Savvy Ladies to you. As Renee mentioned, we are a nonprofit, so we are championing women to take control of their finances through education. I want to highlight some of the areas that I think could benefit you all and your patrons at the library. Following up from the wonderful presentations from Amy and Christine, who were based on fraud and scams, we can help with that too. So I want to kind of take a deeper dive into what we offer. Next slide, please. So I want to highlight first our free financial helpline for women. So this is one of our only programs that are designed just for women, and this is a place where women can come and ask their financial question in a safe space without judgment. They will be paired one-on-one with a financial professional. We have a volunteer community of over 250 volunteers that are ready and waiting to hear women's questions. So how the helpline works is they will go to our website. They will find our free financial helpline there. We also have an app where they can download either any mobile device. You can download either iOS or Google Play, and they can put their question in that way. So when you fill out a helpline request, in the essence that we're talking about frauds and scam, we do ask questions just to give our volunteers a snapshot of their current financial situation. So we're protecting their privacy, but still getting an idea of what their question is in what area, but very much trying to protect their privacy. So once they fill out the helpline request, they will be connected with one of our volunteers. And we offer different ways to meet. So we offer virtual meetings, we offer phone meetings, and we found that by offering the opportunity for women to have their questions answered via email has really opened the door for them to have a conversation over the phone or web conferencing, helps to make them comfortable and build that trust. Since we've started our app in March of 2003, we've seen about 6,500 women come through our helpline. We average about 200 women per month that are visiting our helpline. So we have a very big reach. Next slide, please. I want to show you some of the questions that we get on the helpline. As you can see, these questions have come directly from the helpline. So as you can see, the first person seeking help on rebuilding my credit and financial confidence after a long-term divorce where financial abuse was present. I need guidance and assistance with my portfolio. I need help with an expert to get accurate figures of household expenses, income, debt, gas, and other expenses. These are examples of the questions that we can help with. But what we have learned is about 69% of the women coming through the helpline, they want to learn more about their financial choices. And the helpline was created for what we call limited time engagement that will give the women options. So we're giving them the education, but we're also giving them options, unbiased information. We do not sell products or services, and our volunteers are trained in being very easy to talk to, removing that anxiety from finance. We a lot of people who are not in the finance world. They don't know the acronyms for everything, and they don't know the definitions of everything, and it can be very overwhelming. So we do help with that. Also 67%, they want to enhance their investing knowledge. So we know they're interested and they want that education, and that's what we can provide on the helpline. And we have found that women want to discuss and have these financial conversations. And talking about fraud, scam, financial abuse, it's important to be able to have these conversations. If we're all more active in talking about finances and learning from each other, we'll only be better in spotting these different scams and fraudulent opportunities that are presented to us in the media almost daily. But 75% of the women who come to us, they feel comfortable discussing money, which is really a great thing, considering that uh, talking about finances was often considered taboo. Next slide, please. So as our helpline is dedicated mostly, or it's dedicated solely for women age 18 up and up residing in the United States, all of our other resources, and I don't know if I mentioned it before, but I want to mention it again, everything that we do is absolutely free. All the services that we provide. We are not selling products or services at all. So everything is unbiased information that we are getting, educational information that we are giving for you. So we've worked very hard with our volunteer community to create this workbook. And it's very mindful in keeping the anxiety levels and the stress levels down and making it a very fun way to learn about yourself and your financial situation. This workbook is available to anybody who's interested in downloading it, absolutely free. But you'll get to know your financial self. One thing that's really cool about it is that you can create a financial vision board that allows you to make goals, set goals, work towards those goals. But things that you're really going to take a deep dive in and learn about is your money mindset, your credit score, learning about investing, understanding your spending, which is something that I'm sure all of us could take a deeper dive into, and then making your money work for you. So we encourage you to give this to your patrons, let them know it's out there, even for yourselves. Take a look at it. Again, free download. Next slide. And now I'm really excited to present our Savvy Sessions. So our Savvy Sessions and panel discussions, that's our fancy name for our webinars. So in a Savvy Session, we do about a 45-minute presentation on any of the topics you see listed there, or we will curate them for whatever your community needs are. And they are hosted by a financial professional. Again, we have that community of over 250 volunteer financial professionals that are excited to talk about all of these topics and want to bring it to you. But just some examples: budgeting, career and income. What we're really seeing right now is debt management. So we have some great webinars around that. Retirement, widowhood, marriage and money. Those are just a few different examples. So it's about a 45-minute presentation. If it's a workshop, there might be a little more interaction. But at the end of the presentation, we always save 15 minutes or more for live Q&A so that the patron does get to ask their specific question. And it generally, once the first person asks, we get all kind of questions. So really a great asset to have for your organization, for your library. Next slide, please. So we have been honored to be able to present some workshops and webinars at the New York Public Library. I wanted to take a minute just to kind of highlight what we've done and our wonderful volunteers who have given of their time to present these. One that we did was on retirement, and Eric, absolutely amazing. He talked about the strategies to guide yourself into retirement. What is a successful retirement? What does that look like? And also, if you're already in the midst of retirement, what can you do to improve? It was just a really great webinar that brought it together, what to avoid, goal setting, etc. So that is something that we can bring to you free of cost. We also did a take control of your debt webinar with, excuse me, our volunteer Lisa. She is absolutely amazing at releasing the shame, taking that away from just letting it go. We are where we are. How do we move forward? And again, that also is the goal of our helpline. Just how do we move you forward? And in this webinar, she did a really great job of doing that and learning about what are the options for debt payment plans and so forth. And then the one sort of well-rounded 101, if you will, webinar that Chris has put together is absolutely phenomenal, is taking control of your finances. And this really goes to the core of money management and teaching you the skills that you need to be successful. So she'll talk about saving, investing, learning how to build that financial confidence. So those are just samples of what we have to offer. But again, we can curate anything to fit your needs. Next slide, please. I'm so excited to start talking about this one. This is a brand new program. We have done it a few times. It has been very successful. We're actually doing it in person on Friday, this Friday, at the New York Public Library, and I just can't wait. But it's our money conversation circles, and we are going beyond webinars with this. We can come in person and do this webinar. It also can be online. We really are encouraging people to start having those conversations. And just a few highlights of it. It originally, as we developed this program, it originally was designed to get the entire family talking about money conversations, make that a topic at the dinner table. And so this program is open to everyone, but it is designed for, high school students, like around the junior, senior level as well. So the sooner we can get our youth talking about finances, the better their financial journey will be. So this is, again, like I said, designed to have those conversations at home. It's based on our money conversation cards that we created. So on one side of the card is your conversation starter, your prompt, your question to get it going. It's just a great program to bring to the library and get that in-person meet going. So if you're interested, if you want to go to the next slide, in any of these programs, definitely there's the contact information for myself and our executive director, Judy Herbst. But additionally, for your patrons, please share our website. Again, anything offered on our website is free to everyone. The financial helpline for women is for women, but everything else is for all. We have some online courses that are really great. We have our recorded webinars. We have a blog, so there's a lot of great information there. Our Instagram and our LinkedIn available, but again, please reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you about what we can bring to your library. And again, thank you so much for this opportunity.
Well, thank you. I'm going to now turn to the questions in the Q&A box. The first one is a question about an experience a librarian had where a patron came in wanting help with a job application. It seemed like for what he was asking for was more than librarians are allowed to do. English was not his first language, and he was very insistent on getting my colleague to scan some kind of QR code on his phone. They're wondering if this was a scam and what kind of scam it could be. I guess Christine or Amy, if you want to.
I mean, I
Amy, why
don't,
don't you do this one?
yeah, I mean, I don't know, but it kind of has some of the red flags, right? And so I think they often say it's better to assume everything is a scam and then find out that it's not, right? And so if you're not comfortable, then don't do it. I recently said something, if it feels weird, it is weird, right? And I know how simple that sounds and probably not very professional, but if you feel weird about something, then it's probably weird, so follow your gut. And there's a lot of job scams going on right now. And so I could very well assume that it was some sort of job scam.
Yeah, yeah. Another question, is there any legislation coming down the pike that would provide amnesty for tax payments if someone liquidates retirement funds for a scam?
Yes, there has been introduced a tax relief for victims of crimes, scams, and disaster act, which would be retroactive to a bill that has expired. And so there is some consideration for this, but it's not currently passed. And I will say that we have found that in some cases, some scams fit into an existing Ponzi scheme exclusion. So there are for certain types of investment scams and even certain types of cryptocurrency scams, they can fit into that exclusion, which also exists. But it's not yet enacted in this other tax relief. So keep an eye on that.
Yeah, yeah. So we have several questions in the chat and the Q&A asking for connections to these resources. So I'll just ask Megan if you could put those again in the chat. And in particular, someone who's interested in the Savvy Ladies virtual programs. So if you can just make sure everyone gets that contact information. And one question about the Savvy Ladies webinars, how long will it take to set them up? How far in advance do you need to be notified to set that up?
Some great question. Yes. So basically, we just need it. It's depending on whether you needed something in person or virtual. Virtual, I can pull from our volunteers all across the United States. If it's something in person, I will have a limited pool of volunteers to pull from, so it might take a little bit more time. But in terms of advertising for the event, we usually say at least 2 weeks. But we are scheduling into the new year right now, so whatever works for you, we're very easy to work with.
Yeah, yeah. And I will just attest that, the more times I here at the library provide some sort of opening for a financial conversation, that is sometimes the best way to figure out what people are struggling from. Sometimes people will come to you if they're already concerned, but sometimes they don't really know yet that it's a scam or they should be worried. And so starting these financial conversations is really useful. Okay, so another question, do scammers frequently tell the victims, do not tell anyone else this is happening, or it may get worse, or they will be charged with a crime themselves?
I'll start, and Amy probably has some good stories here. So I think what's unique about this question is that they're asking specifically about the or not or get worse, because secrecy is almost always demanded by the scammers. They will almost always say in some fashion, don't tell anyone else, this is a secret. As Amy said, they convinced you to lie. So for instance, people will go to their bank to withdraw money, and the teller might ask them what the money is for, and they've been coached to say it's for home repairs, or they have a VRBO and they're doing work in a different state, and they come up with these elaborate things. So secrecy is huge. So in fact, one of the most important prevention strategies that I suggest to consumers is tell someone else. Always tell someone else. Not only does it help you benefit from the collective knowledge of the scam, so someone else might know about it if you didn't. But when you take a time delay of taking the time to tell someone else, you can get out of that emotional moment. Sometimes that helps people become a little bit more sort of rational and recognize red flags. And most importantly, I think it's because when we say something aloud, it sounds very different than when we mull it over in our head. And so just telling someone else, if you have no other strategy, that could be a start. And it might be calling the AARP Fraud Watch Network and telling them, because again, all of those points can help. But just to add about the or it might get worse, oftentimes there are threats that are made. And this is again to convince the potential victim or even the current victim, if they've already been victimized and are potentially being set up to lose more money. The scammers will try to sort of tie them into the scheme and keep them there. And so threaten them that if they tell someone else, they're going to look like a money mule. They're going to look like they were complicit. And in order to convince them to sort of stay loyal to the scam.
Mhm.
And that does happen.
Yeah, so let me go to the next question, which I think really follows on this very well. So any tips for helping people realize or accept that they are being scammed? I had a patron that insisted that someone from the government was helping him repair an incident of identity theft. There's lots of red flags, but couldn't convince him there was something wrong about this. Would someone at any of the fraud lines be able to help him verify the legitimacy of a contact? I know that in recent presentations of fraud, the local BBB encouraged us to call their office if we had concerns. So that's sort of, I guess, a general question. And, I'm assuming that the AARP fraud hotline would help you figure out it's a fraud and also a great place to report it. Right, Amy?
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly use it. I will just say quickly, this is a question that we get a lot, is how to convince someone that they're in the middle of a scam. If we had 100% accuracy with this, none of us would be sitting here today, right? I mean, this is one of the hardest things that for us to do, especially with romance or investment scams, is really untangling the story and the hope and the dream that these criminals have created for people. But I always tell people, like, do your best. As Christine said, some of the tactics that we recommend to people are, telling someone or speaking it out loud, writing it down. We've even had people do promises made, promises kept when it comes to romance scams, and then reading it out, like having the victim do this. But most importantly, whenever you're having a conversation with someone who you feel is not really understanding, not getting it, is just to always lead with kindness and empathy with these conversations, not frustration, blame, or shame, because then that line of communication will shut down. And you can always say, listen, this is going beyond what I think I can help you with. Let me get you involved with the experts. Let me get you to a place that can help you more than I can, right? And get them to us, get them to FINRA, to Savvy Ladies, wherever it is, whatever the situation is, so they can help.
Okay. Where might some men go for resources similar to what Savvy Ladies provides women?
Well, I would say men are welcome to take advantage of all that we offer on our website. But I would say reach out to AARP and FINRA. Those are great resources as well. But again, they are welcome to use anything on our website.
Yeah. I would also say that, for us, we have the Financial Planning Association, any of these professional associations oftentimes have local branches or organizations that have a pro bono type program. And so if you're looking for speakers who can just speak on financial planning or budgeting, or that could be someplace you could look as well. Let's see. A lot of questions about flyers and getting the resources. So we want to make sure everybody can get it connected to those. Are you aware of ways that are effective in getting spam calls to stop on cell phones? That they're seeing a lot of patrons who are getting repeated calls on their cell phones.
Um, Certainly, there's a lot of apps that are available, but a lot of the technology is built into people's smartphones as it is. You can go into your settings and have any unknown number go directly to voicemail. And I think if I read in that comment correctly, people do have concerns about their doctor's offices, getting, weeded out. If it does get weeded out, your doctor's office will leave you a voicemail, right? So it's not going to necessarily go away. But the one interesting thing with the technology that I've noticed myself is that if you've ever dialed the number, or if that phone number has ever appeared in an email or any other place on your phone, it does usually bypass that and it comes through and rings to you with a maybe Dr. Smith's office. And so I think it's better to kind of put all of those security things in place with the call blocking apps and the send unknown numbers to voicemail and deal with the calling your doctor's office back than setting yourself for a potential scam.
Okay. Let's see, here is a comment. We had a patron that was scammed out of a ton of money via a frozen computer screen and payment and gift cards to unfreeze it. Thankfully, Target had a record of every gift card she had purchased to help the police. Unfortunately, it was a ring overseas and could only be traced as far as a coffee shop public Wi-Fi. So I guess maybe one of the interesting features of that is like, what do you do when the scam is coming from overseas?
So, not every scam emanates from overseas, but the vast majority of the scams that we're all facing today are being operated by criminal gangs from all different areas of the world, some areas more than others. And so it is very common today that these scams, the kinds of scams we're talking about, are emanating from overseas. That does not mean they should not still be reported. In fact, just this week, there have been several cases where large sums of money have been seized, cryptocurrency and funds have been seized from different criminal operations. So every report has a chance to make a difference. I will say this particular scheme is a tech support scam, it's called. Typically, there's the computer freezes, it buzzes, there's a big sign that comes up and says, call this number, it's been frozen. And the best thing that you can tell someone to do in those cases, if someone came to you and said that was happening to them, one is to just unplug their internet right away, because that cuts the lifelines, like the umbilical cord to the scammer. But also after this scam, they need to have their computer cleansed, and they might need to actually purchase a new computer at that point if they can financially afford that. But taking it to a legitimate computer store and having it cleansed, and not just your traditional antivirus software, and they also need to be looking for what we call remote access software. So a lot of those scams are situations where there's been access to the computer provided by the victim to the scammers, and that stays in the background. Even when you think your computer has been healed, that remote access software continues to exist. And so having the computer scanned for that, and encouraging people to do that is really important.
Okay, we just have a few minutes left, and so I want to ask this one question. When do you advise someone getting in touch with law enforcement versus a hotline, one of these fraud hotlines?
I would certainly say if any money or personal information was lost or stolen, to 100% call law enforcement. This is a crime, and we report crimes to law enforcement. And so you need to encourage them to do that. And with the expectations that it doesn't mean that they're going to get a perp walk, doesn't mean that they're going to get their money back tomorrow. But just like when my house was broken into, I called the police. Never saw who did it, never got any money back from stuff that was stolen from me, but you report crimes to the police.
That's right.
And a lot of times we say, just there's no room door, you know, in many cases, victims need to report in multiple locations. The police would be one. Getting a police report can be helpful, but they might also need other assistance, and having a helpline or a peer support group to go to is also helpful. I see there's a related question, Renee, so I just want to answer it. Someone's asking if there's an obligation to report the scam if the patron is not interested. There's no mandatory reporting requirement in these kinds of situations. I would say in most scam situations, there's not much that can be done without the victim's cooperation. So you probably can't necessarily report it as for the victim.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I think, another thing I see concerned patrons have is they can be, they don't want to share a lot about their personal identity, and they want to be able to ask the question. So I do think sometimes if you are dealing with a patron, letting them know they can call a hotline and maybe not say their name. Oftentimes when we had webinars, people would post questions in the Q&A anonymously and get their question answered, and it can be a nice way for patrons to get someone else's take on something, a professional's take on something, without having to be exposed too much about their, potentially embarrassment about the situation. So Okay, we really just have one more minute. And I just really want to make sure everybody has access to these resources. I also want to conclude by thanking our panelists for sharing their insights. There's really, these scams will always change over time, but there's always going to be the need, I think, for librarians to connect people to professional resources. I also want to thank the ALA and the FINRA Investor Education Foundation for their support. You're also invited to take a brief survey at the link in the chat. ALA and the FINRA Investor Education Foundation are interested in providing additional training and grant opportunities for personal finance programming in libraries. The survey will take about 10 minutes to complete, and while supplies last, respondents will receive a supply of eco-friendly piggy banks, which can be used as giveaways at financial education programs for kids. So thank you everyone for joining us, and have a great afternoon. And we hope to see you in our financial literacy interest group meetup.